Welcome, dearly beloveds. It's really nice to have us all here in this, to use an Indian word, um, satsang that you might have heard otherwise. And what does the word actually mean? It's a word from Sanskrit, and Sat, is referring to truth and beingness, and Sang is the community. So this is a community of truth and beingness and therefore lovingness. That's what we are. So welcome. And we are really blessed to be together and to have the amazing opportunity to discuss some of the, each lesson is amazing, but they keep getting better. And, they keep getting better as we kind of start towards the end of the calendar year. And so today we'll be discussing lessons 323 through 329. And what I'd like to read you is a prayer from lesson 326, which we can try and get together here as we worship truth, as we worship our Father, as we worship our source. Father, I was created. Actually, let me start sharing it as well if you'd like to read along. Father, I was created in your mind, a holy thought that never left its home. I am forever your effect, and you forever and forever are my cause. As you created me, I have remained. Where you established me, I still abide, and all your attributes abide in me, because it is your will to have a son so like his cause that cause and its effect are indistinguishable. Let me know that I am an effect of God, and so I have the power to create like you. And as it is in heaven, so on earth. Your plan I follow here, and at the end I know that you will gather your effects into the tranquil heaven of your love, where earth will vanish and all separate thoughts unite in glory as the Son of God. Makes my hair stand on end as we consider the ramification of these thoughts. Well, the ramifications of us, we are his thoughts, his effects. Maybe we just dwell here in a few moments of silence. Okay, let's come back here and just as this series of 10 lessons started, the essay that precedes these lessons is what is creation? And if we can spend a few moments on this essay, we probably did some of this last time as well. Nevertheless, it basically speaks to our prayer. What is creation? And Ardith, welcome, by the way. You're most welcome into our satsang, as we were discussing earlier. And we are going to be reading a short selection from the What is Creation essay. Forever and forever are God's thoughts exactly as they were, and as they are, unchanged through time and after time is done. Obviously, every sentence and word is precious here, but I'm going to read through the selected parts. Creation is the holy Son of God, for in creation is his will complete in every aspect, making every part container of the whole. And then, at least as far as these selections are concerned, finally, let our function be only to let this memory return, only to let God's will be done on earth, only to be restored to sanity, and to be but as God created us. Let's dive in with your thoughts and sharing on some of this.
It is like you said, Manu, towards the final lessons, it gets intenser and more worshipy, I should say.
I wonder, we have a split mind. The part that's still aware of unity it must still be creating, still thinking and creating with thoughts, because really all creations are thoughts. Of course, the ego mind doesn't see it that way. It sees, sees things as concrete. But so we're not creating here in the world, but I think we're still creating.
That's what the Course says.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's my thought on that.
I was just thinking, Andrew, and then Sharon, is your raised hand on the same topic, on the same thing that Andrew just raised, or in general?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, if I may respond, I think I was just thinking, so is the apparently separated mind creating? And I would say it can and it should. So whenever we are on this path, when we are actively forgiving and therefore remembering the one love, in other words, when we create or enable love to be real in our lives, maybe that's also creation and extension.
I think so.
Actually, I thought God created and we make. But I see here, no, that's not true. It says that we share and thus his son shares in creation and must therefore share in the power to create.
Yeah. The creation goes on even without us knowing. When we're in the wrong mind, we're not aware of it, but it continues. That's puzzling, but that's what the Course says.
Yeah. Well, the reason I raised my hand is I just wanted to say that the deeper we get into this, the more, for me, the more lighthearted and practical it is. It is so handy to be able to stop instantly in my mind when something flares up that is like or an upsetting thought, to be able to go, oh, I don't have to see it that way. I can see it a different way. And at first I do that. And if I can't see it a different way, then I ask, can you help me see this a different way? But I feel like I'm so trained now that it's like I have the power to not even have to stop and ask, because I know that I can change my mind and look at it with love because I've been taught. So that was a revelation for me on my trip to Costa Rica, because I spent so much time with my earphones on listening to Gary Renard's books, and that and doing the work, the reading the daily lessons. Anyway, I just love how practical this course is.
Thank you. Susan, would you like to go next?
So I may not use the right language, but my intention is to say, creation is expansive, right? It's not contractive, it's expansive. And as each of us releases any sense of illusion or the dream state, again, vocabulary and right language, sorry, and finds the holy mind, then we are in a state of active creativity by very virtue of being in that mind, because that illuminates things. And by illuminating things for within ourselves, it also shines out and helps illumine the space, the people around us, and their ability to create expands with almost like the nutrient of that light. Again, wrong language, but
your language is perfect. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that language.
Thank you, Susan. Maggie, you now virtually have raised your hand as well. I was going to ask you to speak.
Yeah, and I don't, I'm open to just being corrected or taught something here. But I think when Sharon asked that question about us making and not creating, I think it says somewhere that we make things with the ego. We create with spirit, or like ego makes things or miscreates, I think is kind of the language that gets used sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly. And project. The ego makes and projects. And the spirit creates, expands, extends. Yeah. Creation is communication. That's what the course actually says. You can, if you use the search engine, you type in communication, creation, you get in the one sentence synonym for the creation is communication. And I suppose you would have to think while you say that in love, because any other type of communication is attack.
Well, everything we do communicates something. We're either communicating love or we're communicating fear, I think.
Yeah, but if you read the sentence, communication is creation, and if you're communicating fear, then you're doing something else.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that's semantics.
Yeah.
Ardeth?
No, I was just thinking the thought about communicating fear. Actually, we're not communicating anything. We make things in the illusion. This is my understanding. I'm open to correction also. We make things in the illusion, but they're not real, so they're not substantial, so they really have nothing to do whatsoever with eternality that we are a part of. The only thing that really makes any difference is love, and I was thinking of that sign in that line about the miracles, everything that's created. I can't get the wording; it's not in my mind right now. But everything could be considered love. Every miracle can be considered love, and if that's backwards, either way. The whole idea being that fear really, we give it too much credit. I think the making, yeah, it's here in the illusion, but ultimately it isn't real. It isn't substantial, and the only thing that makes any difference, the creation act, which is communication. That's love. That's love all the way.
Yes, yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
I think the word is teach. Like the Course says, you're either teaching, we're teaching all the time by our actions and our thoughts and all of that. And we're either teaching love or we're teaching fear.
That's true, exactly. I
That
think
that's
that's a
what
good,
yeah.
that's a good clarification, Sharon. Because technically in the language of the Course, communication would only be, the creative aspect. But we are always teaching. We are always teaching either this, the love, or that, the illusory world of fear. In fact, that might take us to lesson 323. I'm going to put it on the screen, and if somebody would like to read it for us or any selection thereof, it would be amazing. Keith, please go for it.
I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. Here is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved Son. You ask him to give up all suffering, all sense of loss and sadness, all anxiety and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming into his awareness, healing him of pain and giving him your own eternal joy. Such is the sacrifice you ask of me, and one I gladly make, the only cost of restoration of your memory to me for the salvation of the world. And as we pay the debt we owe to truth, a debt that merely is the letting go of self-deception and of images we worship falsely, truth returns to us in wholeness and in joy. We are deceived no longer. Love has now returned to our awareness, and we are at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains.
Thank you, Keith.
Welcome. I always perceive those words in quotes as sarcasm.
That's right. The word sacrifice in this case, yes, it's what the Course seemingly sarcastically is suggesting that it's not a sacrifice.
Right, exactly.
Maggie?
Yeah, I feel like Jesus has a sense of humor, like often. And I love it. I love the little, sometimes it almost feels a little snarky, but I like it. It's I really love this lesson so much because I feel like for many years, my early Course study and practice, I just really felt the fear so much, and it felt like sacrificing things. And I'm fearful of that sacrifice. And it just makes me think of the manual for teachers, the development of trust section, how in the beginning you are assessing things inaccurately, valuing things that are not valuable. And so it seems like you're being asked to give up things. And it seems like sacrifice is being asked. And I just really in more recent years, like really feel this where it's like, oh yeah, the sacrifice of fear. Like, why would I? It's not a sacrifice at all. And it kind of gladdens me. It makes me feel like I'm out of at least that first section in the development of trust. I don't know where exactly I am sometimes, but it feels like, oh yes, I can see now that fear is the thing I'm being asked to give up, and that is not a sacrifice at all. Thank goodness.
Thank you, Maggie. Yes, thank goodness and thank godness. Basically, I think we know the reason we are fearful of letting go or considering it to be a sacrifice is because we are losing ourself, our false sense of identity, right? So the ego that we always identify with me, myself, I guess, and us is letting loose. And that's what's really fearful, among a couple other things. And so it just seems like, yeah, I'm going to lose my identity, what I've known of myself in this illusory world. That's all I know, because there's no other memory really on an active basis, unless we reach some amazing state of enlightenment or whatever it might be. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Okay, let's keep moving on. Who would like to read us in the next beautiful voice, lesson 324?
Susan, did you raise your hand?
And Andrew was speaking while mute as well.
Oh,
I didn't raise my hand, but I'll gladly read.
okay.
I merely follow, for I would not lead. Father, you are the one who gave the plan for my salvation to me. You have set the way I am to go, the role to take, and every step in my appointed path. I cannot lose the way. I can but choose to wander off a while and then return. Your loving voice will always call me back and guide my feet aright. My brothers all can follow in the way I lead them, yet I merely follow in the way to you, as you direct me and would have me go. So let us follow one who knows the way. We need not tarry, and we cannot stray except an instant from his loving hand. We walk together, for we follow him, and it is he who makes the ending sure and guarantees a safe returning home.
Thank you.
Well, that certainly seems to make it easy to follow the course, because you're not choosing the way to go. You're just letting yourself be led, I guess, by events, the way things go. But still, we have to make choices. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong choice in much of daily life. That you just make a choice and accept the results, and that's all you can do. And you know, as long as you accept the results, the choice can't be right or wrong, because that would be a judgment. I mean, as long as you're not hurting someone, it's hard to find guidance, is what I'm trying to say, in every decision in your life. A lot of things you have to just decide, and as long as you accept the choice, accept the results, it's a right decision.
Thank you, Andrew. Sharon, why don't you please go?
I was just going to say I'm not sure I completely agree with that, because I think that if I can only speak for myself, but when I need to make a decision, if I ask, you know, ooh, what should I do here? I feel like I get something. It's not a voice or anything like that, but I feel like I'm directed somehow, even if it's just a little nudge in one direction, and then I go with that. And then I absolutely accept all of the consequences, even if they're bad, you know, bad on a worldly scale. because therein lies the lesson, because all things are lessons God would have me learn. So I feel like I can always make decisions based on asking the Holy Spirit to show me what is the best decision to make. That's just me though.
Yeah, I think there's two things here which both seem to be accurate from my perspective as well. One is, if we hark back to the rules for decision in the text, where it talks about, basically says what you said, Sharon, that we could be asking for guidance at every step of the way, every little decision. And there's stories about Helen, and Judy has given other examples as well. So literally, I could ask a question like, should I have my eggs as an omelet or over easy? I could actually ask a seemingly silly question like that. And then the text reminds us in the rules of decision that oftentimes we've subconsciously already made the decision and then appear to ask the Holy Spirit. So it reminds us to truly ask in the first place, and then act, accordingly. And even if we don't apparently get a nudge or a direction, you're spot on, Andrew.
Yeah.
Make the decision that seems to be getting made, and totally accept it for what it is, because there is no wrong decision at the end of the day.
Right.
And because this is a very plastic kind of a matrix like consciousness, or God, it'll adjust to everything. It'll adjust to every even apparent wrong decision that we are seemingly making. And so all things therefore turn out to be for the good, no matter what. Maggie?
I was just going to say that in some moments where I don't get a response, I've come to now understand that in some moments it just doesn't matter. Like with the omelet example, I feel like it's a good one. I might actually sometimes ask a question like that and feel that, oh, there is a decision right now that the Holy Spirit suggests I make. But then in some moments, it's like, have your eggs how you'd like to have them, Maggie. It doesn't matter. It won't affect the day. And kind of to what Manu was just saying too, there's even times where I feel very strongly what the guidance is I'm being given. And I kind of feel like, I don't know if I want to do it though. And then I feel, okay, well, here's another option rolls out. It's like, there's no way to make a wrong choice. And of course, is the only way to really value anything is just whether it's helpful or not, right? Some things just seem to be more helpful than others, but that's really the only, I think was it a right decision or wrong decision? I think doesn't make sense. Is it helpful?
Oh, sorry, Peter, I'll just share one quick thing here before you can, if you don't mind waiting a moment. So I just got reminded about an hour or so ago, I had a decision in front of me about when to meet with a certain person. So they had given me a few choices, and so I selected what I thought would be convenient for my calendar and was about to respond appropriately. Then I actually remembered that, oh, interestingly, I haven't asked the Holy Spirit. And this doesn't happen with me all the time. I'm not asking the Holy Spirit all the time, but I'm trying to. So I actually cleared my mind and I asked the Holy Spirit, and the apparent nudge was for another time. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just follow with that. And so I made that decision that appeared to be coming from that inspiration or nudge. So I just wanted to share that. We'll see what that eventually means or how it turns out.
Yeah.
Peter?
I just want to say I like my eggs poached. Couple of things. So actually, in my book, I say that there's no such thing as a wrong choice or decision if we're willing to do two things. Number one, learn from it, learn from our mistakes. And number two, forgive ourselves for that. And the Course reminds us, my only function is forgiveness in this world. So if I'm forgiving a choice or decision that quote unquote doesn't work out, I'm still practicing the Course, fulfilling my function. In terms of, should I have eggs or whatever, I think the thing that I get is throughout the Course, but also from the Urantia book, in section 4, the life of Jesus, Jesus always asked before he did something if it was in accordance with God's will, the Father's will. And a lot of times the message was it was not against the will of God, so he went forward with that choice or that decision. So I think that there's something in, it may not be directing do this versus do that, but is it in accordance with God's will, as I understand it, as it comes through the Holy Spirit? Now, Jesus also in the Urantia book talks about, to his apostles, I believe, he was telling them, they were asking about God's will. What does that mean? And he said, think of God's will as God's way, the way God does things, the way God would do things. And then I'm drawn to the Conversations with God books, where he says there are 5 attitudes that God has. God is totally loving, joyful, blessing, accepting, and grateful. So for me, if I'm blessing, if I'm accepting, if I'm joyful, if I'm grateful, if I'm accepting, I'm living God's way, which to me is the same as God's will. And if that's where I'm coming from when I make a choice or decision, it is probably not a bad choice or decision. That's it.
So beautiful. Thank you. Keith?
Yeah, that very tail end is almost exactly what I was going to say. And back to Andrew's point, I think he was saying something to the effect of maybe the day gets too busy to ask the Holy Spirit for every question or something like that. And I was thinking about and I do not practice this, so I can't speak very well about it, but the rules of this decision section talks about starting your day. And I think if you start your day like Peter was describing, then it's not so much asking the Holy Spirit for every question.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. So if we go about the day with those 5 ways, with that attitude, with that beingness of loving and being grateful and supporting, then how can we really be doing anything or being anything that's not of God? That really resonates with me. Thank you.
I think when you walk with the Holy Spirit every moment of the day, you don't have to even wonder about things like that. It's taking care of it.
Yeah.
So that's my goal, is to like buddy up with the Holy Spirit constantly all day long,
Yes. And whenever I do remember, I try and visualize that I'm actually holding Jesus's hand and walking.
Yeah.
That really is very helpful to me.
Helps you see the people coming at you as me. It helps me, boy, I practiced that a lot on my vacation, just saying to every single person I saw, give me your blessing, you holy Son of God.
And thank you to everything, and thank you to everyone.
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
Same sentiment, really, blessings and thankfulness and
Gratitude and joy. Yeah. All one big smile.
Yes. That's so beautiful. And actually, this also reminds me of one more thing from the Urantia papers, Peter. It talks about creating and supporting truth, beauty, and goodness. Those are 3 essential qualities that get talked a lot about in those papers. And so if we are in pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness, then again, we are doing God's will, and we are living God's way. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, Andrew, did you want to, were you looking to
Yes, I'd
read
be
one of
happy
these
to.
lessons?
Sure. All things I think I see reflect ideas. This is salvation's keynote. What I see reflects a process in my mind, which starts with my idea of what I want. From there, the mind makes up an image of the things the mind desires, judges valuable, and therefore seeks to find. These images are then projected outward, looked upon, esteemed as real, and guarded as one's own. From insane wishes comes an insane world. From judgment comes a world condemned. And from forgiving thoughts, a gentle world comes forth with mercy for the Holy Son of God, to offer him a kindly home where he can rest a while before he journeys on, and help his brothers walk ahead with him and find the way to heaven and to God. Our Father, your ideas reflect the truth, and mine apart from yours, but make up dreams. Let me behold what only yours reflect, for yours and yours alone establish truth. I think that lesson perfectly illustrates how the world is imagined and then projected outward. How we experience the world.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before, Andrew, and the fact that we imagine it first and then perceive it outwardly, versus the other way around.
Right, right. That's another thing that's handy. Once you get that concept, or once I got that concept, that I project first and then perceive, not the other way around, then that really, for me, it makes it easy to set up things by projecting they are all me and they're beautiful and all of that. That's just easier. It's an easier loop for me.
Yeah, except now you're extending instead of projecting.
Right.
In creation.
But I also perceive sweet people all over the place.
Yeah, I think, yes, Johanna.
And this relates also to deciding ahead of time what type of day you want. It's the same principle, right? You decide first, and then you'll see it.
Wow. Yes. Basically, this course is asking us to remember who we are. And by remembering who we are, we realize we are an effect of God and therefore wholly creative. And now we can start employing our creativity in the way it ought to be, the way it was designed to be. And, and then through this mechanism, come, so to speak, come back home.
Yeah.
So lesson 326 is the prayer that we read. I am forever an effect of God. And I'll just read one sentence here. Let me know that I am an effect of God, and so I have the power to create like you. So we'll keep moving. Let me share lesson 327. Ardit, do you have your text handy?
Yeah, I do. Would you like me to read it?
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay, lesson 327. I need but call, and you will answer me. I am not asked to take salvation on the basis of an unsupported faith, for God has promised he will hear my call and answer me himself. Let me but learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in him must surely come to me. This is the faith that will endure and take me farther and still farther on the road that leads to him. For thus I will be sure that he has not abandoned me and loves me still, awaiting but my call to give me all the help I need to come to him. Father, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I but test them out. Let me attempt, therefore, to try them and to judge them not. Your word is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes, and surety of your abiding love is gained at last.
Thank you, Ardith. When I read this lesson a few days ago, I did have this question, how do we test our Father out? So, Keith, would you like to go first? Let me stop sharing here.
Actually, I will go first, but I need you to share. I would prefer you to share that screen. Could you put that screen back up?
Sorry, I didn't hear you properly. Yeah, coming back on.
So that first sentence, I have trouble with the two negatives, the not and the un. I was wondering if anyone could reword that for me with more positive.
The first sentence?
First sentence, yes.
So if we reverse it, I am asked to take salvation on the basis of a supported faith.
Okay.
Or Johanna?
No, I don't think that's what he means. He would like us to phrase it in an affirmative way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith, what problem do you have with him saying that? Like if I said to you, I'm not asked to take salvation on the basis of an unsupported faith, and like the next thing after that would be, there's all the support in the world for that faith.
The second sentence helps. Yeah. Just the two negatives throw me. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
I can understand.
And there's a lot of dialogue in here that kind of throws me. The use of the word but, because a lot of times you can substitute the word only, but not always. Not always.
But not always.
Yeah, not always. So I just have to know that it's right, no matter what it looks like to me. It's the best way to put it.
But if you, Keith, if you read the first part as I don't have to take salvation on the basis of a faith that is thin. I don't have to take salvation on the basis of a thin faith. Would that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
I think that goes back also to when we're told that we don't have to accept these ideas at all, and some of them will be very shocking to us and whatnot, because we're always in the ego mode. We're always in the prove it to me. So to me, that first sentence is kind of reassuring, because it says what it says. You're not being asked to just kind of fly free there. There's substance here, and read on and take it in. And so I guess that's what lets a lot of people take that first leap to when they read the beginning. I don't have to accept these ideas or anything. I just do them, and it will kind of prove itself to you.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying, Ardith, you're saying that that is the test then. We just practice the ideas and see if they work for us or not.
Well, yeah, because I think like in sentence 3 there, it says, let me but learn from my experience that this is true. So yeah, to me, it's just another way of saying, I won't say practice makes perfect, but unless we practice them, unless we do them, we're never going to have the experience. So I guess it's kind of like a nice, gentle challenge. Okay, it's here for you, but you got to put it in practice. You can't just sit and read it. So, that's how I kind of look at it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Susan? You're mute, still on mute.
Thank you. I certainly understand confusion with double negatives. And when I see that first statement, then I see the first line of 327.2 saying that faith will never fail. The promises never fail. Just test it out and see for yourself.
Yep.
So that's the supporting, to me, that's the supporting element of, you don't have to take this faith business on faith. Try it out, test it out.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Sharon?
Okay, I just wanted to say that long before I ever learned about the course, actually in 1972, I wanted to live my faith. I wanted to live by faith. And the man I was married to, the father of my children, that wasn't going to happen while I was with him. And he knew we needed to separate too. And I knew we needed to separate. But he said, you can't make it on the amount of money that I can give you to, for these kids. And I said, yes, I can. And he really didn't believe it, but he went ahead with it and we got a divorce. And I started living by faith. And the amount of money that he could give me, $300 a month to cover everything, wasn't enough. But I knew it would always be, I knew I would always be taken care of. And I started living just on faith. And that was the first time I did it. And I've never been let down, ever, ever. So that's all I wanted to say.
Tell us a little bit more. How did you practice it on a daily basis? Did you just affirm to yourself that you'll be taken care of? Like, what was the actual mode?
No, I knew somehow from the time I was young, I always felt like I had this big friend over here. I didn't know what to call it. I developed a thought that it was my oversoul, but I didn't know what that word meant. And it was just the most handy word. But the first time I really practiced something like that, I really wanted a spinning wheel, and we couldn't afford that. We had 3 little kids. We were like, 23 years old. And I said, I believe that if I really want it and I really put it out there and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to have it, that I will get it. And he said, oh, what do you think? God's going to give it to you? And I said, yes. And I don't think God was like, oh, I'm going to give you a spinning wheel, but I just knew there was something in this area here that if I went forward and I asked everybody I met, everybody I knew, do you know anybody who has a spinning wheel that they're willing to sell, rent, loan me, whatever? And it took a couple of months, and it took false leads. Oh, I have one, and no, it wasn't really real, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden one day I sat down and said, how can I be more open to receiving a spinning wheel? And I didn't get anything, but it was like, okay, well, okay, I'm just going to stay open. And I pushed the baby carriage home. And as I was opening my door, the phone was ringing, and it was one of my girlfriend's mother who I'd never met. And she said, I hear you want a spinning wheel. And I said, yes. And she said, well, I'm interested in reviving the old arts, and I want to buy you a spinning wheel. And she took me the next day. I didn't say anything to my husband. She bought the spinning wheel. We went to Richmond to this place where this guy had them. And I bought it. And when he came home from work that night, he was like, where did that come from? And I said, God gave it to me. And I believed it. I absolutely believed it. And that one little thing is what gave me the courage to say, I know I'll always be taken care of. Always. And I always have been. And we're very good
Thank
friends, me and him.
That's so true. That's always true. And, bringing it up consciously as an element of faith can only be helpful. Thank you. Maggie?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I loved that story. And I love that. Did you say oversoul? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I called it.
I just like it. Some part of you was onto it.
Yeah, now it's Holy Spirit. I don't call it the
In
oversoul
fact,
anymore.
that's a terminology that was used in the Seth materials quite a bit in the 60s and 70s, just FYI.
Yeah, I never read the Seth materials, but I may, well, probably not. I don't have time. I'm always on the course, so I don't.
Yes, but Manu, you asked just, how do we do this? How do we test this for ourselves? I just had an example I thought I would share. I know for me, it took many, many years before I started to get these messages, even though I was reading them, that I started to get some of these messages about how to actually set my intention at the beginning of the day. And, my early course practice was very much just, watch my thoughts and watch my judgments, which is valuable. And it took me far, but decade or more into my practice, honestly, is when I started to really get on to, I'm being told I can set my intention at the beginning of the day and do it in this way. So for me, I know I started, once I started realizing that, I started being very active with that and asking God to, have me have a day where I actually have experiences that prove this to me then, right? Because that's what I think this is saying, is just outright say that, show me. Jesus said, I can ask you and then you'll show me. And I did started having those experiences once I started asking those questions very intentionally. And I got directed right to the rules for decision. And I've already read it before, but I was reading it with new eyes. And I got directed right to setting the goal, which I think Johanna was just mentioning too. Read it with new eyes. And then I felt like this is very much my practice right now, is having this commitment moment by moment right from the beginning of the day and setting an intention. And in the setting the goal section, it talks about how the ego always tries to make sense of things after the fact. It's looking back at things and trying to make sense, or it says, no, don't do that. Set the intention of what you're going to get out of it before you go into it, and then you get it. So I had this example recently where it just it was illustrated to me so clearly. And it was because I was asking, again, as I always do now at this point, for more and more evidence of it in my experience. And I had a day where I was kind of running a little bit late between meetings, and I had a meeting on my calendar, and I just went into it without setting any intention before going in because I didn't have a ton of time. I just showed up because this is what's on my calendar right now. And I came into the meeting and it was there was no intention in the meeting. Everyone was just looking at each other, what are we even doing here right now? And then later that day, I remembered I ought to set my intention before I go into this meeting. And I had just such a different experience going into the other meeting. And of course, you could say, Maggie, that was just randomness, but it felt very, very much examples to me of, if you walk into these spaces with no intention, there is no intention here.
So I have a clarifying question that's very helpful. Thank you, Maggie. So to me, it's not clear what kind of intention to set. So in your example, a business or a relationship-oriented intention might be that, in this meeting, let's come to a conclusion that's helpful or something along those lines. And the intention that if I were to really do this consciously, which I occasionally do, then I would say, my intention is that may God's will prevail. And so, that's very generic and it's not specific, kind of contrary to the rules of decision in some ways. So I'm just wondering, how would you respond to that confusion?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I feel like I ought to correct my language immediately because I don't think the course uses the word intention. It talks about setting the goal. Intention is language that's important to me, but from outside of the course, I think But to me, as long the goal can be very vague, and I think it's better actually if you're not trying to project out to specifics of what it will look like. But I might set a goal, like I'd like before I came into this meeting just now, I set a goal to learn and to be helpful if it is helpful for me to say something, and to just have a nice connecting experience. So that can be the goal. I have a goal overreaching right now just to make all my relationships holy. So I don't know. I think you can have a lot of different goals, and they can be a little bit more specific to specific scenarios as you go into them, but then you can have goals for your overall day too. But I really do think, in my experience, not getting hung up on what it'll look like is important, and speaking more to just what it'll feel like, and then letting spirit show me what that looks like.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very helpful. Ardith, we have a few minutes remaining. If you'd like to, in a sense, close this out for us, and maybe even consider a prayer that can make this an amazing experience for us.
Wow.
Sorry.
You don't load on very heavily, do you? I think everything everybody said here today has value and worth, and I say it under the umbrella of this course specifically is so individualized. What might be a goal to one might be just a passing thought to another. What might be an intention to one is an openness just to receive. It's really all going to process properly depending on what we want to find and what we're willing to allow. And so I think maybe for me the key is in the word openness. And you can't go wrong if your intention, asking yourself how you feel about this, and if your intention is to learn or to teach in order to learn, then and you stand aside. For me, that kind of encompasses my goals. Although sometimes I do like you do, Manu, specifics, but I think just being open is to me is a key. But I appreciate listening to everybody today. And actually, just as I open my book, this is a prayer. We hear it all the time on Symphony, but it so fits now, and I'm very happy to read it. We're very familiar. I am here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal.
Yeah, that was amazing and perfect. Couldn't have been better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Johanna, you may stop the recording.